On the news, presidency pushes back on allegations of Tinubu's involvement in the crisis bedeviling political parties in the country. Aliko Dangote casts doubt on the future of NNPCL's refineries amid rehabilitation challenges. Nigeria's health insurance grows to 20 million as NHIA moves to tackle maternal mortality. It's a pleasure to have you join us on News Now on TV360 Nigeria. I'm Okpeyemi Owosheni. The Nigerian presidency has dismissed allegations that President Bola Tinubu is behind recent disruptions faced by opposition parties in the country, calling the claims unfounded and politically motivated. The special advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, disclosed this during a televised interview. Ononuga denied reports that the president was interfering with meetings or activities of opposition coalitions, particularly the new alliance between former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, Labour Party's Peter Obi, and others under the African Democratic Congress. Opposition leaders had alleged that venues booked for political events were suddenly cancelled and that members of the ADC coalition had to walk long distances to reach the Shehu Musa Yar'Adua Center in Abuja to avoid attracting security attention and risking a blockade. Meanwhile, the Minister of Arts, Culture and the Creative Economy, Anatu Musawa, has said that power should remain in southern Nigeria for the next 4 to 6 years to ensure political balance and inclusivity. Musawa, who made a statement on Friday, said zoning remains necessary because Nigeria is yet to rise above ethnic division in its politics. The president of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, has doubted the possibility of the state-owned Port Harcourt, Warri and Kaduna refineries functioning again. Dangote also stated that the refineries which are under the management of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited had gulped up to $18 billion yet have refused to work. The billionaire businessman disclosed this while hosting members of the Global CEO African from the Lagos Business School after a tour of the Dangote Petroleum Refinery in Lekki, Lagos. According to him, the 650,000 capacity Dangote refinery, which he built after the government of the late President Umar Yar'Adua aborted his acquisition of the government refineries, now has over 50% of his output dedicated to premium motor spirit, also known as petrol, saying that even government refineries committed just 22% of their production to petrol. Dangote emphasized that the turnaround maintenance of the refineries was like trying to modernize a car built 40 years ago when technology has advanced. The Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Bayo Ojolari, says it is becoming a more complicated mode to revamp state-owned refineries. On November 26, 2024, the NNPC said the Port Harcourt refinery had officially commenced crude oil processing, but the refinery shut down in May for maintenance. The Warri and Kaduna refineries are, however, still undergoing rehabilitation. In an interview with Bloomberg on Thursday, Ojolari said the NNPC is currently reassessing its refinery strategies and aims to finalize the review by the end of 2025. Well, let's now get expert insight into these topics. I'm joined by oil and gas expert Olabode Showumi. Mr. Showumi, thank you for joining us on the news. Now, given Aliko Dangote's statements doubting the viability of Nigeria's state-owned refineries after over $18 billion in investment, and former President Olusegun Obasanjo, I meant to say, similar warnings dating back years. Now, I would like to know your view on this. Do you think this facility is still technically and economically salvageable, or are we chasing sunk costs?
Okay, thank you for your question. I think to everybody who is not a direct player, and I mean by direct player, not part of the NNPC and not part of managing the refinery, every information that we get is third-party information. To the extent that they've been investing money and it appears not to be working, that can be a conclusion. However, for us to reach a conclusion that is based on knowledge. We need to have access to the report on the state of those refineries. Because, you see, at the end of the day, the refinery as a plant is a machine, a big, complex machine, but it's still just one machine. And what is key to note is that if you have a dishonest manager, just like you have a dishonest mechanic, you can have a small problem, which may just be plugs. And if it doesn't do it well, the car will continue jacking to the extent that you may sell the car, not knowing that it was just, you just needed to change the plugs to arrive at that. So it is quick, it is easy for those who are competitors, for those who stand to gain, to just advise that the refineries be sold. But I would think it is important that the report on the state of the refineries be made public. And from there, because even if they're going to sell it, whoever is going to buy it, it still needs information on the state of the refineries. And from there, informed decisions can be arrived at. Those are my views on the matter.
All right, now, Mr. Sowunmi, the CEO of NNPC Limited, that Bayo Ojulari, has also admitted that revamping these old refineries has become a bit more complicated than expected. He cited failed technologies and aging infrastructure, and also hinted that a sale is now on the table. Now, from an industry standpoint, do you think Nigeria should be reviewing its entire downstream strategy and then possibly shifting towards full privatization or modular refining instead?
So I think the downstream sector is quite mature. I mean, having been around for a number of years, close to 7 decades and all that. The issue is that the refinery, which for a significant point of view or time had been in the hands of the NNPC, is what is being challenged. The refineries of NNPC do not really define what is, they do not really define what is the downstream sector policy. The policy in terms of how the downstream sector will play is outlined within the tenets of the PIA. And most of it tends towards private participation. That's the reason why Dangote is able to obtain a license and be a participant in the first place. What I think should happen is that there should be open, transparent information and decision-making before the privatization is done, so that the refineries are not just sold as scrap to friends and cronies. I think that is important, that Nigerians put their foot on ground and the NGOs and those who are related shout to the rooftop, so that these things the refineries, which are national assets, don't just disappear like that. Those would be my views on that.
Well, oil and gas expert Olabode Sowunmi, thank you for your time. It's always a pleasure having you on the news. To electoral matters now, the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has confirmed that it received 129 applications from associations seeking registration as political parties. INEC's update was delivered during its weekly regular meeting. According to National Commissioner Sam Olumekun, 7 new applications were received last week. INEC has also introduced a new digital platform to streamline the party registration process as part of its party financial reporting and auditing system. And following the sealing of 3 bonded terminals over various trade infractions, the Nigeria Customs Service has announced a ban on the examination of pharmaceutical cargoes in such facilities. The Controller General of Customs, Adewale Adeniyi, said clearance for such goods will now be handled only at 4 approved locations: the Apapa Customs Command, Lagos International Airport, and the Onne Port in Port Harcourt. Speaking during the handover of 25 seized containers of unregistered drugs and breast enhancement products, Adeniyi warned that any operators found aiding smuggling would face license revocation. To health matters now, the health sector is undergoing transformation as part of the broader reform agenda of the Tinubu-led administration. The Director General of the National Health Insurance Authority, Kelechi Oyiri, says over 2.7 million vulnerable Nigerians are now covered under the Universal Health Coverage Scheme. Speaking at the 13th Annual Business Day CEO Forum, Oyiri said enrollment under the scheme has risen from 16 million to over 20 million. He added that upcoming initiatives aim to reduce maternal mortality, highlighting improved insurance access as key to safeguarding maternal health in the country.
But the health sector is not left behind. His Excellency Mr. President set aside his vision for universal health coverage, and he launched the Health Sector Renewal Investment Initiative that the Coordinating Minister for Health, Professor Mohammed Pate, is championing. And it makes reform agenda in healthcare very, very important. And I'll tell you a few, particularly that pertains to me. One is about coverage of more people. So we know that according to the National Health Act, 1% of consolidated revenue goes towards primary care. Last year, payments were made every quarter to support this. About 2.7 million Nigerians who are poor and can't afford health insurance are covered by this. Of course, we know that many of these countries, it's about health insurance is a good path to universal coverage. And in the last year and a half, since December 2023 to date, we've grown from about 16 million people covered to about 20 million people covered with a form of health insurance. And this is because not only at the federal level, but also every state in Nigeria now has a health insurance scheme. And so this is where the public sector and the private sector are marching towards universal health coverage. And these reforms are really foundational. The government also looked at how do we crash maternal mortality. And we decided that it was not just enough to wait for people for these benefits to trickle down. The government is particularly focused on equity and making sure that people, when they need, they do not die. And if Nigeria has some of the highest maternal mortality rates, there must be something we can do. So I'll just speak of three things. So first is that the basics of any system is primary care. So my colleagues in NPHCDA are working towards the revitalization of primary care centers to improve quality. Not every illness needs to report to a hospital. So if we can solve primary care problems, then we can solve most of our issues. And we're collaborating with them in that regard.
And experts have urged world governments at all levels to provide an enabling environment and basic skills for youth to thrive. Now, this is part of recommendations offered in commemoration of this year's World Population Day tagged Empowering Young People to Create the Families They Want in a Fair and Hopeful World. TV360's Simisola Adigun completes the report.
According to the United Nations, the world is home to 1.8 billion young people between the ages of 10 to 24, the largest generation in history. Sadly, several challenges, including economic insecurity, gender inequality, limited healthcare and education, climate disruption, and conflict, threaten their well-being. These challenges have heightened calls for a future that is just, inclusive, and sustainable globally.
It is important for our young ones to recognize that they have a responsibility to raise a family in a conducive atmosphere that they themselves, can provide. It is not enough for them to continuously hold on to this idea of scapegoatism, holding government responsible, holding society. They also have a role to play in any society they find themselves, no matter how little. So if they understand that life is a process, a lot of persons that are today parents, if they tell you their history, you'll be like, how did they make that first move? But like we say, dare to try, dare to win.
Nigeria boasts a large and vibrant youth population, yet many remain disoriented due to a lack of proper guidance, mentorship, and meaningful opportunities. Experts say that without intentional and sustained efforts to reorient, empower, and engage them, the country's future development and stability may be jeopardized.
We know that, yes, the jobs are not there. But of course, we have a de-oriented youth population, majority of them. And because of that, most of them are into drug abuse or misuse, which is even a greater challenge as far as I'm concerned. Then those who are not into drugs, abuse or misuse, are into what we call Yahoo in our own climb here. That is internet fraud.
Government at all levels must look at ways in which she can provide the enabling environment that will allow our youths to acquire the needed skill to make a living and to become entrepreneurs, creator of job and creating wealth themselves. So these are what is expected of any society. And also the youths, we must also make it very clear to them that they should not despise small beginnings.
As World Population Day is observed, the call is for urgent and inclusive policies that prioritize education, gender equality and youth empowerment, laying the foundation for sustainable development. Simisola Adigun, TV 360 News.
The Coalition of Civil Society Groups on Transparency in Governance, led by Empowerment for Unemployed Youth Initiative, has criticized what is described as false and unverified comment by the 2023 presidential candidate of Labour Party, Peter Obi, over the recent SUG electoral crisis at the Federal Polytechnic, Auchi, Edo State. The coalition, while speaking in Abuja, led by Igwe Ude Umanta, recalled that Peter Obi on his X handles disclosed that 2 people died as a result of the crisis. According to the group, Peter Obi's miscalculated intervention heightened anxiety amongst parents, guardians and the public, who felt that the students are facing grave danger or dire security challenges. The coalition said security reports and reports of the National Association of Polytechnic Students, who are officially accredited observers, confirmed that no life was lost during the crisis.
Though we are aware of Mr. Obi's political attention-seeking schemes, which are within his rights, we are so worried about why he will post an unverified news, even when he can easily access institutions that can give him the correct information. For a man who always charged us to go and verify, this is distasteful because we have verified and the result is the very opposite of what Obi posted. So we dare say that Obi lied, and this time he lied hard. For a person of his standing, we feel very, very worried. We feel ashamed that he got into this unnecessary crisis due to attention seeking. We hope that he will have the humility to apologize and retract his statement. One does not understand why a man of Mr. Peter Obi's public and political standing could jump on a bandwagon and totally demarket and smear a thriving institution like Auchi Poly.
We had a very disturbing news that we find it difficult to cohere with, and we read in the pages of newspapers, even in the televisions, that there are some media's outfit who reports the SUG election crisis in Federal Polytechnic Auchi that claims that 2 died. Even our amiable leader, the person of Peter Obi, the immediate presidential candidate of Labour Party, even tweeted, and we became worried. What kind of society are we in?
It's time for a quick break, but when news now returns, Greece passes North Africa asylum ban despite opposition from right groups. Stay with us for more details. Welcome back. Now let's take you through our main stories. The presidency has rejected claims that President Tinubu is disrupting opposition coalitions, calling the allegations baseless. The special advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Ononuga, denied reports that the President was interfering with meetings or activities of opposition coalitions, particularly the new alliance between former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, Labour Party's Peter Obi, and others under the African Democratic Congress. We also told you that the President of the Dangote Group, Aliko Dangote, has doubted the possibility of the state-owned Port Harcourt, Warri, and Kaduna refineries functioning again. Dangote also stated that the refineries which are under the management of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited had gulped up to $18 billion, yet have refused to work. Now, in case you missed any of our news bulletin or for more update, you can catch us on Limex World TV and AVO TV, or log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on X, Instagram, and YouTube at TV360 Nigeria, or download our mobile app on Google Play Store, Wabi App Gallery, and Apple Store. On Facebook, we are TV360 Online. It's time for business news, and Joy Uchejim is on standby. What's the latest, Joy?
Thank you, Akpayemi, and welcome to business news. Now, amid economic uncertainty and ongoing structural reforms, top CEOs, government officials, and industry leaders in Nigeria gathered at the 2025 Business Day CEO Forum in Lagos to engage in critical conversations about Nigeria's future. The annual event, themed Nigeria from Reform to Recovery, brought together decision makers from across the public and private sectors to explore solutions to Nigeria's economic challenges and identify pathways for inclusive growth. TV360's Victoria Konde has more in this report.
From fuel subsidy removal to foreign exchange unification, Nigeria's bold reforms have sparked widespread debate, and the Business Day CEO Forum offered a platform to discuss Nigeria's reforms over time and the way forward. In his keynote address, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, duly represented, outlined the economic reforms being taken by the government and a target of 18% revenue mobilization and 7% GDP growth by 2027. Also speaking, the Group Chief Strategy Officer at Dangote Industries disclosed plans to expand the 650 barrels per day capacity refinery to meet economic demands.
This administration has stopped the recourse to Ways and Means. It is just not a window we have been accessing, and we're trying to bring greater fiscal discipline. We've been driving up revenues using digitization. We all know about the Tax Act, which Mr. President has assented to, and really recognizing the fact that revenues have to come from that domestic revenue mobilization.
So the Dangote refinery is changing the global flow of petroleum products. If you just consider the fact that, for example, we take about 15 cargoes, which by next year will become 20 of petroleum, of crude oil every month. Historically, those cargoes will have left Nigeria, right? And then they'll go somewhere else, they'll be processed, and then they'll come back. But now those cargoes go from terminals in Nigeria to a refinery in Nigeria. So that is changing the flows of both crude oil and petroleum products and is disrupting the market.
Key players in Nigeria's oil and gas industry called for an urgent review of the Petroleum Industry Act, citing outdated provisions that fail to align with global trends, evolving technology, and current industry challenges.
Over the 20 years we were dilly-dallying. But for whatever it's worth, we now have an act. And I think that act today should be reviewed for current reality. That act doesn't take cognizance of digitalization. That act doesn't recognize AI. And today, as we are sitting here, you can't survive without AI. That act is a bit outdated on arrival. So for me, the revision of that act is the first thing. But in terms of regulatory support, you need to enable the industry. One of the biggest challenges we all face today is not the production, but is how to get the production to point of sale.
Other stakeholders at the event commended the reforms of the present administration over time, but called for steps to institutionalize them.
Experiencing in Nigeria an unprecedented pace of reform. We're seeing reforms almost in every sector. We're seeing fiscal reforms, monetary reforms, trade reforms all over. So there's a plethora of reforms that are happening, and they're all geared at strengthening the economy, improving domestic resource mobilization, and ensuring that we're building an economy that is fit for the future.
It is not about specific reforms, it's about the context of reform. It's about being effective with reform. It's about reform that creates an inclusive economy so that those who are benefiting are not just a few people at the top, but everybody in Nigeria. It's about accompanying the economic reforms with other reforms in judiciary, reform in health, and in other areas of life.
The 2025 CEO Forum served as both a mirror and a map reflecting Nigeria's current realities while charting the road ahead. Experts expressed optimism at the gains of current reforms and economic stability. Victoria Akonde, TV260 News, Lagos.
We'll now take a short break and return with stock market reports. Welcome back. It's the final trading day of the week and the Nigerian stock market had a bountiful run, closing slightly in the green with a modest 1.37%. Now, a total of 128 listed companies were active on the NGX, with 62 posting gains, whilst 25 closed lower. Guinness Nigeria led the gainers chart, jumping 10% to close at 96 naira 80 kobo, followed by Cadbury Nigeria. Now, overall trading activity picked up with over 1.38 billion shares exchanged across 33,399 deals, valued at more than 30.5 billion naira. Now, that's a noticeable improvement from Thursday, with volume up by 9%, turnover up by 10%, and deals up by 20%. Now, while Nigeria market stayed upbeat, the global scene took a different story, as you can see on the chart, with every of our select global stocks dipping in the red. Meanwhile, in the forex markets, the naira held steady, trading at 1,555 naira, 15 naira to the dollar, 2,160 naira to the pound, and 1,810 naira to the euro, despite ongoing economic headwinds. And that's your business and stock market updates. Okpe is back to you for the rest of the news.
Thank you, Joy. And on the foreign scene, Greek lawmakers have voted on Friday to temporarily stop processing asylum requests from migrants arriving from North Africa by sea in a bid to reduce arrivals into Europe's southmost tip, a move right groups and opposition parties have called illegal. The ban comes amid a surge in migrants reaching the island of Crete and after talks with Libya's Benghazi-based government to stem the flow this week. It marks a further hardening of Greece's stance towards migrants under Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis' center-right government, which has built a fence at its northern land borders and boasted sea patrols since it came into power in 2019. And on sports, Liverpool is set to honor Diogo Jota and his brother Andrew Silva during Sunday's pre-season friendly against Preston following their death in a car crash in northern Spain on July 3, 2025. The tribute includes a rendition of You Will Never Walk Alone, a minute silence, black armband, and digital displays in their memory. Jota's funeral, held last Saturday, was attended by manager Arne Slot and several first-team players. And that's up our news bulletin on News Now at this time. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Okpeyemi Owosheni. See you next time.